Hi. Um, this is an essay by Georgia O'Keeffe called Reflecting on Why I'm an Artist. And it's in the book Women, Creativity, and the Arts Critical and Autobiographical Perspectives, which is really good as a selection of essays and things by a number of artists, including Georgia O'Keeffe and Anais Nin, Alice McDermott, just a number of really great women in the arts. Um, so you should check it out. But here we go. Reflecting on Why I Am an Artist by Georgia O'Keeffe. The meaning of a word, to me, is not as exact as the meaning of color. Colors and shapes make more definite statements than words. I write this because such odd things have been done about me with words. I have often been told what to paint. I am amazed at the spoken and written word telling me what I have painted. I make this effort because no one else can know how my paintings happen. Where I was born and where and how I have lived is unimportant. It is what I have done with where I have been that should be of interest. My first memory is of brightness of light, light all around. I was sitting among pillows on a quilt on the ground, very large white pillows. The quilt was cotton patchwork of two different kinds of material, white with very small red stars spotted over it and quite close together, and black with red and white flower on it. I was probably 8 or 9 months old. The quilt is partially a later memory, but I know it is the quilt that I sat on that day. The year I was finishing 8th grade, I asked our washerwoman's daughter what she was going to do when she grew up. She said she didn't know. I said very definitely, as if I had thought it all out and my mind was made up, I am going to be an artist. I don't really know where I got my artist's idea. The scraps of what I do remember do not explain to me where it came from. I only know that by this time it was definitely settled in my mind. I hadn't seen many pictures, and I hadn't a desire to make anything like the pictures I had seen. But one of my mother's books I had found a drawing of a girl that I had thought very beautiful. The title under it was Maid of Athens. It was a very ordinary pen and ink drawing about 2 inches high. For me, I had just happened to be something special, so beautiful. Maybe I could make something that beautiful. I think my feeling wasn't as articulate as that, but I believe that picture started as something moving in me that kept it on going as had to do with the everlasting urge that makes me keep on painting. Up to that time, aside from the Maid of Athens, I can't remember any picture that interested me, except a Mother Goose book printed on cloth, a little girl with pink roses in front of her on my table cover, and a painting that hung in my grandmother's parlor, some very fierce-looking Arabs on horseback crossing a stream. I didn't have a very clear idea of what an artist would be. Later, when people asked what kind of artist I would be, it was always embarrassed me. I didn't know. Then they would ask, well, what are you going to be, an illustrator, or a portrait painter, or a designer, or what? The idea of being an illustrator didn't mean much to me. I never associated my ideas of being an artist with illustrations in books or that we had, and I didn't know what they meant by a designer. So I would say a portrait painter. I could grasp the idea of a portrait painter. There were 2 quite handsome portraits of my great-grandmother and great-grandfather at home. There was a crayon portrait of my mother, but I wondered how anyone could possibly imagine that it looked like her. The other 2 were dark and dignified. The great-grandmother wore lace collar and cuffs and a lace cap tied with a light blue ribbon that I thought very pretty. She wore a thin gold ring on her first finger. It looked very nice on her hand. But her face wasn't pretty to me, so the picture meant little to me. The man was better looking. He was comfortable and rosy, with a queer collar that curved up near his ears. He held in his hands a newspaper attached to a long, dark polished stick. There was also a portrait of my grandmother. She looked old and sad. I didn't care for that one either. I think I had no desire at all to be a portrait painter. The portraits in the house didn't interest me enough to have made me think I would enjoy making them. I remember someone saying that if I were going to be a portrait painter, I would have to paint anyone who wanted to be painted. I emphatically insisted that I only intended to paint people who I thought I liked or thought it beautiful. The fall I was 13, I was taken to boarding school, a Dominican convent beyond Madison. The sister, who had charge of the art classes, had a beautiful dark, large eyes, and very white, lovely hands, but she always felt a bit hot and stuffy to me, and I felt the shrinking away from her. On my first day in the studio, she placed white plaster cast of a baby's hand on the table, gave me some charcoal, and told me to draw it. I worked laboriously, all in a cramp, drawing the baby's hand with a very heavy black line. I thought my drawing very nice, and I liked doing it. When the sister saw it, she was very impatient. She said I had drawn the hand too small and that my lines were too black. She particularly emphasized the fact that it was too small. At the time, I thought that she had scolded me terribly. I was so embarrassed that it was difficult not to cry. The sister sat down and drew a few light lines blocking in the way she thought the drawing should be started. It looked very strange to me, not at all beautiful like my own drawing. I wasn't convinced that she was right, but I said to myself that I would never have that happen again. I would never draw anything too small. So I drew the hand a little bit larger than she suggested, and that the whole year never made a heavy black line again. I worked mostly with a fairly hard lead pencil, and always drew everything a little larger and a little lighter than I really thought it should be. When my drawings were put up on the wall for exhibition in June, there was a whole wall of the pale drawing casts. The sister wrote G. O'Keefe on each of them in her big free hand, writing with a lead pencil much blacker than the tone of my drawings. I was shocked to see my name so big and black on my pale drawings, and it didn't seem like my name. There was someone quite apart from me. I had never thought much about having a last name. It was the fall of 1915 that I first had the idea of what I had been taught was of little value to me, except for the use of my materials as language: charcoal, pencil, pen and ink, watercolor, pastel, and oil. I had become fluent with them when I was so young that they were simply another language that I handled easily. But what to say with them? I had been taught to work like others, and after careful thinking, I decided that I wasn't going to spend my life doing what I had already been done. I hung on the wall the work that I had been doing for several months, and then I sat down and looked at it. I could see how each painting or drawing had been done according to one teacher or another, and I said to myself, I have the things in my head that are not like what anyone has taught me, shapes and ideas so near to me, so natural on my way of being and thinking, that it hasn't occurred to me to put them down. I decided to start anew, to strip away what I had been taught, and to accept as my own true thinking. This was one of the best times of my life. There was no one around to look at what I was doing, no one interested me, no one to say anything about it one way or another. I was alone and singularly free, working into my own unknown, no one to satisfy but myself. I began with charcoal and paper and decided not to use any color until it was impossible to do what I wanted to do in black and white. I believe it was June before I needed blue. I find that I have painted my life, things happening in my life, without knowing. After painting the shell and shingle many times, I did a misty landscape of a mountain across the lake. and the mountain became the shape of the shingle, and the mountain I saw out my window, the shingle on the other table in my room, and I did not notice that they were alike for a long time after they were painted. There are people who have made me see shapes, and others I thought of a great deal, even people I have loved, who make me see nothing. I have painted portraits that to me are almost photographic. I remember hesitating to show the paintings, they looked so real to me, but they have passed into the world as abstractions, no one seeing what they are. It is surprising to me to see how many people separate the objective from the abstract. Objective painting is not good painting unless it is good in the abstract sense. A hill or a tree cannot make good painting, because it is a hill or a tree. It is lines and colors put together so that they say something. For me, that is the very basis of painting. The abstraction is often the most definite form of the intangible thing in myself that I can clarify in paint.